get asked a lot about Matco Tools Franchise. Is it a good business to own? How much does it cost? How much can you earn? And more. We're going to look at that today on Franchise City. Matco is one of those franchises where buyers make decisions on emotion rather than on data. It's a similar situation to the Amazon DSP. It's a low investment opportunity. A lot of people who don't have a ton of business experience are looking at this opportunity. I'll place a link to the Amazon DSP review that we did recently above. But how great would it be? This is what people are thinking. Driving around in your own truck, being your own boss, selling tools to businesses and making a six-figure income. Matco Tools, they've got some big earnings numbers on their website with total revenue up to $2 million a year. Looks like a great opportunity, or is it? To get started, you're going to need to invest between $76,000 to $309,000. You can see the breakdown of expenses on your screen. If you want to pause that and jot those down, feel free to do so. Now, as far as earnings here, the numbers from Matco's website as of today, which is January 10th, 2023. Matco earnings are divided up by top, middle, and bottom one-third of their distributors. Top one-third median revenues at $644,000, middle one-third at $447,000, and bottom one-third of Matco distributors are earning $303,000. Looks like their top earner, you can see it right in here, came in just under $2 million, and their bottom location is most unhappy at $0 per year. Now, I have to give kudos to Matco for their disclosure, which placed right below their earnings on this page, not hidden away in tiny text where you can't find it. Now, they initially state the obvious, or at least something that should be obvious if you're considering buying a business, that these numbers listed are gross earnings. They're not net earnings. That's not the amount that goes into your pocket. Your truck lease payments, your gas, your truck maintenance, your labor costs, your loan payments, your insurance, all of that stuff still has to come out of your gross number. Now, Matco does not list what your earnings are going to be after expenses. It's very difficult to do so with so many different distributors. And of course, that number is going to be quite different depending on your location and your specific situation. But I can tell you it's going to be a whole lot less than the gross number. And you have to wonder if Matco distributors are making a livable income with those numbers. Now, more on that in a moment, but perhaps relevant to that point here, look at this further in their disclosure. During the 2021 calendar year, 189 distributors closed or ceased operations. Of these, 15 were open for less than 12 months. Now, that's a huge number of distributors that closed up just in 1 year, and that's certainly not a good sign for the franchise. I took a look at their franchise disclosure, and their growth numbers showed that even with closures, they'd sold almost 150 franchises since 2019. So they are closing them fast, but they are selling them even faster. Online complaints, we know there are a dime a dozen. You don't know which ones you can trust. You don't know if they're legitimate. There are dozens of complaints, however, of the Matco franchise all over the internet. Complaints of fraud, no freedom for their owners, exaggerated earnings claims, territories being taken away from owners, and a lot more. A simple search for Matco complaints brings these up by the dozen. In fact, Unhappy Franchisee states they had more complaints on Matco than on any other franchise listed on their website. But how can we validate if any of these are legitimate? Now, we can probably assume that given the number of these, the sheer volume, that at least some of them, if not all, are legitimate, but let's make sure. Another one of the benefits of buying a franchise is that companies are legally obligated to list lawsuits over a certain period of time in their disclosure documentation. So I took a look at their most recently filed documents, and many of these online allegations also show up as legal cases against Matco. Now, there's currently a class action lawsuit alleging that due to the level of control exerted over Matco franchisees, and this is one of the primary complaints we see online, that they should not be considered independent franchise distributors, but should be considered employees of Matco. Other lawsuits, as we go through the document, include fraud and civil conspiracy based on fraudulent and deceptive financial projections, unjust enrichment, fraud, deceit, and negligent misrepresentation. And there's a few more pages of people suing Matco and Matco suing its distributors. Now, lawsuits are not the end of the world. Most of the larger franchises do have some lawsuits in their disclosure, but these type of lawsuits are definitely a red flag, and I would want to proceed with a lot more caution. I would also want to speak with many existing franchisees, and not just their top ones, but some that are struggling as well, to get their sentiment and their feelings on the franchise as a whole. Another thing you might wonder is, if almost 200 distributors lost their franchise and all their money last year, why don't you hear more complaints? Why aren't franchisees going to the press? Now, keep in mind that most franchises are going to have you sign an NDA. That's a non-disclosure agreement that subjects you to substantial fines if you discuss any aspect of the business after the fact. So you don't just lose your $100,000 plus on the franchise, but now you have to pay legal costs and thousands in penalties. So most ex-franchisees, they just bite the bullet. They know they're under this NDA and they just give up. Now, I covered how this scheme works in the dark side of franchising. Now, I'm not saying that Matco is purposely being deceptive, but there are franchises out there that will misrepresent, they will lie, and they will cheat newbie investors just to get at their money. So you have to be extremely cautious. So is Matco a good business? Well, I'm pretty sure that the distributor who's making $2 million a year is pretty happy. I'm sure there are others within the organization that are happy, but there are quite a few red flags you want to consider, including the complaints and the lawsuits. And one of the comments I saw online when researching this piece really sums up my sentiment and how I feel. I've seen a lot of Snap-on, Matco, Mac, and Cornwell dealers fail and succeed. I can only speak for Snap-on, however. So this is a Snap-on, but it's similar, and it will apply to the majority of these similar types of business. If you do your homework, when you get in, you get the right training and support and get a good route, you can make money. Understand, though, if worked properly, you just bought a 6-day-a-week job working 12 hours a day. At the end of the year, if all went well, you made 60 to 70 grand. To me, that's a job. So that, again, that was for Snap-on. It's a similar type of business, and today those figures are probably higher. But it speaks to the crux of this issue and something that we always speak about here on the channel. Do you want a business or do you want to buy a job? There are many businesses that are well suited to have you ultimately step away from the business and allow you to become more of a passive owner. The question is, are you comfortable running a business in an executive capacity, or do you prefer working in the business, like with a Matco? If you love the tool industry, you love talking to people, you love driving, Matco could be a good business. If your goals are to build a franchise empire and maybe one day step away, it might not be the best option. As we always say here, there's no perfect franchise for everybody. It depends on you, your locality, and your situation. Always remember, never go direct to a franchise. Always call an experienced broker like Franchise City to help you through the process. Link above. Thank you very much for watching.